Hi everybody and welcome into the Irish NFL show in partnership with Pundit Arena. This is week 14 of the NFL season and I'm delighted to be joined by the usual team, Colin, Brian and Mark. First of all, Colin, welcome in, man. Almost there now, almost Christmas.
Almost an interesting week 14 suite of games where I think pretty much everyone still has something on the line in each of these games. After this week we might begin to get a clearer picture of the playoffs, but still plenty to play for this weekend.
Well, we've got the champion of the NFC East so far sitting there. Brian, welcome in.
Yeah, very important game for the Giants this evening, along with a number of different games as well. There's a lot on the line this weekend. Just to Colin's point, I think we'll have a clearer indication of who's going to be going to the playoffs by the end of this weekend.
Excellent. And Mark, last but not least, my friend, welcome in. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Michael. Good to see you, boys. Funny week this week. It's AFC primacy. We often talk about how much the interest and the intrigue of the NFC playoff race arises. But we've got some great games with massive playoff implications for the AFC teams, especially the top seedings and the key divisional winners games. So looking forward to it after the madness of week 13, to say the least.
One AFC team that isn't involved in a very important game is our first game that we're going to look at, and that's my beloved Denver Broncos going up against in a Super Bowl 50 rematch with the Carolina Panthers. Both teams are 4-8. How the good times end very quickly. Colin, good times can end very quickly. Where do you see this game going today? An early game for the Broncos, which for us, I know nobody else cares, but for us, hallelujah.
Absolutely, yeah, an unusual one for the Broncos to be playing early, but headed east. Memories of Super Bowl 50 and of the first game the following season, which is where I think we really broke Cam Newton. We probably should have had about 8 personal foul called against us in that game, but Cam has never looked the same since. The battle of the 4-8 teams, one team who've probably over-delivered and one team in the Broncos who have under-delivered. It's the Broncos need to lean heavily into the running game that was so effective against the Chiefs. That kind of Melvin Gordon in particular had a really, really good game. The Panthers are not good against the run. You saw them give up that 98-yard touchdown to Ronald Jones against the Bucks. The Broncos without Mike Purcell have had their own problems against the run, but it looks like Christian McCaffrey will not be playing today, and that is a huge loss for the Panthers. They're decent. Teddy Bridgewater, he has kind of in Anderson and Moore, he has 2 decent options, and the Broncos are light at cornerback, with Boye now joining Callahan and Bassey. I think this needs to be a statement week though for the Broncos. We've seen them devastated by injuries, but look, Drew Lock, if he is to be the franchise QB, this is where he needs to come good. The Broncos should win this game.
Yeah, actually, interesting enough, it's a weird one because it's actually a weekend where there's been 2 Super Bowl rematches, because Thursday night's game as well was the Rams-Patriots, Super Bowl 53, and now we're looking at a rematch of Super Bowl 50. And God, how the 2 teams have moved on for all the wrong reasons since that Super Bowl. But Bridgewater's lost 6 games in a row, and you're right, Colin. I mean, Locke really needs to start standing up and prove he's the quarterback of the future. I mean, he's not thrown for over 10 touchdowns this year, but he has thrown for over 10 interceptions, which aren't the kind of stats you want to see. But without McCaffrey, the Panthers just aren't the same dynamic force they are in offense. When he plays, there's just so much more to them. You saw that when they went into Kansas City and had a field goal to win the game because McCaffrey, he's such a star marquee player for them. Without him, and despite what you said about them having other options, I see the Broncos coming out on top. I think the Broncos will win the game.
No, nice of you, Brian, to bring up that Thursday night game. I was wondering how long that would take.
We had to get it in, Mark. We had to get it in.
A rematch of Super Bowl 36 and 53, and obviously the Patriots got hockeyed on Thursday night. Deservedly so, it must be said. The Rams played a great game. But for this particular matchup, Run CMC isn't playing, and it's like that, but that's the way it is. Is what I want to say about that. We've had a terrible season for Christian McCaffrey. I mean, a dynamic talent, signed a massive deal in the offseason, had to spend locked up with his Sports Illustrated cover model girlfriend. I mean, the lad's had a tough 2020, it must be said, but he's definitely had a tough 2020 when it comes to the injuries. And the Panthers have been that surprise package. Bridgewater has been very effective. They've been quite compact. As Colin alluded to, they've overachieved from what people were expecting. And if Christian McCaffrey had been able to play the full season, who knows? Maybe they would have squeaked out another couple of wins. But they're at the stage at the moment now where, if I'm a Panthers fan, being really honest, I want to lose this game. I actually want to get the better draft positioning because they still need a lot of help. Matt Rule's shown good stuff in his first year there of his 7-year contract. And now this key offseason and this key draft will be instrumental to how he builds up that side going forward. We've talked long and hard about the Broncos, obviously, about Drew Lock and the issues that arise there. But overall, gents, it's a kind of a William Shakespeare week for me. And unfortunately, with other games on the slate, this game is much ado about nothing. There are two teams that aren't going anywhere. This is playing out the stretch, and it won't, be a classic by any manner of means.
Well, maybe if we score a touchdown as a Broncos fan, it might be better than your Thursday night experience, Mark. And I just want to repeat what I said on Thursday night. Just beautiful prediction again by yours truly, gentlemen. And like much ado about nothing. I agree. And look, I'm not biased at all about this game, but the reality is the Broncos will win this game because the Broncos should really tank and go for as big a draft pick as possible. They won't. They'll do what they usually do. Drew Lock will ball out. I mean, they were okay against Kansas City on Sunday night, which seems like a long, long time ago. Christian McCaffrey not being there is a big miss for the Panthers, but I think this will be a game where Drew Lock comes good. I think Drew Lock's going to have a run towards the end of the season and just give me and Colin a headache going into the next 8 to 9 months. I want Drew Lock to do well, but unless he goes out and scores 6 touchdowns today for 450 yards, hits Jerry Jeudy twice, I'm not going to notice that, and I'm going to be more frustrated almost because this team again I think is going to go nowhere until there's an ownership change. And to the people that are watching this through our Broncos sources, I'm so sorry, but I have to just say that. And yeah, I think the Broncos will win this game and improve to 5-8 and only 2 games up the Patriots, Mark. So hopefully the Patriots next game will be described as much ado about nothing next week. Talking about, this is more, I guess. Bears 5-7 are welcoming the Houston Texans 4-8. 5-7's a little bit better than 4-8, Colin. What's your take on this game?
Yeah, I started by saying that it was a week where, most games had something going for them, and yet the first few haven't had a lot because none of these teams are going to the playoffs. I suppose last week, the Texans, what was interesting was no Will Fuller, cold secondary, and first game for Watson without a touchdown pass this season. He also got sacked 5 times, but that was against the Colts. The Bears have struggled to get to the QB, and their secondary, despite being good for most of the season, struggled against Matthew Stafford last week. The Texans have just been awful against the pass for the entirety of the season. So if the Bears could do anything, then they could get at that. But would you trust Mitchell Trubisky? Because I wouldn't. He mightn't have thrown an interception last week, but he did fumble at a key moment. I trust Watson far more, and I think the Texans will win this, even though they're on the road.
Yeah, in fairness, despite the fact that Watson didn't have the best game last week, they still had a great opportunity to win the game at the end, and they fumbled in the red zone. They probably should have went in and won the game, and then it might have looked very different. But the funny thing with Trubisky is, despite all his flaws this year, the Bears, in the 4 to 5 games that he's played, he's actually put up over 24 points. Foles didn't do that, with the exception of that game where he came in Atlanta, but I would have put that down more so to Atlanta having another meltdown, which you've seen over the course of the season. And Singletary ran very well last week for the Bears in defeat. And the Texans, they're giving up passes. They're also giving up a lot of yards in the run game. So it's a difficult one, but I trust Watson more than I trust Trubisky. So I will lean towards the Texans win.
meme of the 2020 NFL season has to be JJ Watt's face at the end of that Houston Texans drive last week where they fumbled it away. It was just this combination of exasperation, disbelief, and just sheer kind of ennui, I suppose. It was so expressive and so frustrating for him all at the same time, obviously. To me, I'll give you another Shakespeare reference. This is a comedy of errors because both of these teams, whether it's in the construction of their rosters, the performance of their coaches, or indeed the performance of many, many, many of the players on both sides of the ball, have just been a comedy of errors all season long. The Bears came out with that surprising start and everybody wondered, was it a bit of a fluke? And I think that's been proved conclusively true. The Texans have desperately underperformed, but after the off season they had, and obviously the turmoil at the beginning of the season with Bill O'Brien's firing, you kind of ask yourself, well, could you expect anything else from them? Again, as we've all alluded to, these teams aren't making the playoffs. The intrigue of what happens in the future, what do the Bears do at quarterback, for example? What do the Texans do to rebuild a roster? Now they've completely gutted it in trades for Tunsil and others. All of these questions are far more interesting to me, honestly, than this particular game. I would back the Texans to edge it. The Bears are very much on a sliding slope away. They should be able to put together more conclusive offense. And God knows the Bears don't even know what the word offense means the last while.
Just alluding to what Mark began there and JJ Watt. Congratulations to JJ Watt for getting flu over 3/4 of the season without being injured for the rest of the season. So well done there. That's an achievement by his standards over the last 4 or 5 years. Look, the Bears put up 34 points against the Lions last week. The Texans are going to win this game by about 10 or 14 points. That's all I have to say, really, to be honest. Deshaun Watson, that was funny last week when he messed up, but that's all I have to give. The Bears are shocking. Shocking. How many games have they lost in a row now?
Bears? 6.
Is it?
Yeah. 6. Now, for Claire the Bear that watches this and does, and we massively appreciate you just retweeting this and stuff, Claire, love your content and stuff. I'm so sorry. I just think the Bears are going to lose this game, so hope you don't hear this. But for me, I think the Texans will win this. And ironically, going on what Brian said, if they had won that game last week, the Texans, and won this game tonight, they're sitting 6-7. Season completely transformed, almost going into that final stretch. So it is funny in that sense. I think the Texans are going to buy about 14 points, boys. Not in lock of the week territory yet. We're almost there. America's team against Tony the Tiger. It's in Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to taste great. Lads, 3-9 against 2-9-1 column. Entice me to watch that game. Go on.
Well, difficult given that America decided it wasn't going to watch the Cowboys and they got flexed. We discussed this a little bit on Thursday nights. It's probably the most interesting story I think around this is Andy Dalton's return to Cincinnati, and that is probably the story to see what he can do. But that said, if the Cowboys have any sense, they will hand it to Zeke. Zeke looked more like Zeke last week, and the Bengals are awful against the run. One of the few teams even more awful is the Cowboys, but the Bengals don't have anybody to run against them. I mean, this highlights the difference between, this is kind of, if this was fantasy football, you would be drafting somebody in, but you can't do that in real life. It's not like the Bengals could bring somebody in because the Cowboys are so bad. That's one of the big differences. The Cowboys, for me, will have too much, even though they have any number of issues there. But the poor old Bengals, just no QB, no running game. It's just difficult to see them getting anything going on offense.
Yeah, the Cowboys defense is ranked 22nd in the league, worst defense in the league by far this season. But unfortunately, to Colin's point, there's not enough threats there within the Bengals to take advantage of that situation. I wouldn't be too confident that Zeke will be the man doing all the work for the Cowboys. I can see Tony Pollard starting to get more into the game. I think there's a bit of a trust factor there with Zeke at the moment. as you touched on Colin last week, he keep fumbling the ball. So I think they're kind of starting to shy away from using him as the workhorse and give more of a balanced running game with Pollard. So yeah, the Cowboys still have threats, they still got CeeDee Lamb, one of the players that can do the business for them on offense. And I think the Cowboys will win,
yeah. Both teams are going to quote Shakespeare, strange again, guys, but they're going to be hoping that all's well that ends well. Like, this season is a write-off for both of them, but the Cowboys are hoping that Dak obviously recovers from his injury, is the dynamic playmaker they want, and he's worth franchising next year again. Equally, let's be clear, the Bengals' future at the moment is in Joe Burrow's knee and his recovery from that horrific injury, obviously, he suffered. With medical science and with the developments of various kind of capabilities, you fully expect him to recover. But they want to see that great talent develop and evolve, as we all do as NFL fans. And as long as that happens, the Bengals should be fine. They have to devote a bit more time and attention to roster construction over the next couple of years. But they have been a team, as Brian knows, that have been stirringly competitive in games. And they've played tough, they've played hard, and they've played well. The Cowboys, on the other hand, whilst they've pulled out one or two rather unusual and surprising victories, the Vikings game, obviously, recently, of course, the week 2 comeback against the Falcons, for the most part, they've underwhelmed and under-delivered. I can't blame Andy Dalton for all of that. Zeke hasn't played well. Their offensive line has been torn up. Remember, Travis Frederick retired during the offseason. Zach Martin's now down. And where Stephen Jones, I won't give Jerry Jones the credit, Stephen Jones has invested a lot, is developing that really powerful offensive line to help Zach, to help Dak and to help Zeke in terms of their gameplay, which has obviously helped in the last couple of seasons. For the purposes of tonight's game, Cowboys will win it, mainly because the Bengals don't have sufficient firepower. But, it's not going to be a stirring game, to say the least.
Last time the Dallas Cowboys were relevant in terms of winning the Super Bowl, Blackburn won the Premier League, and I was in second class in school. Let's be honest, boys. I mean, what's like...
Michael, I like the way you're doing these games. You're getting through some very poor games, shall we call them, early, before we get to the enticing ones of the weekend.
This is the bad first quarter, Brian. This is the
excuse me, but what's wrong with
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Okay, the last couple of games, shall we say.
I am going per the NFL communications list. Now,
okay.
I apologize. They also spelled Shelby Harris wrong on that list column, just a heads up. Dallas Cowboys 3-9, Bengals 2-9-1. Yeah, I agree. Nothing game. Who wants it more? Neither team wants it more. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. I don't think the run will be a factor for the Cowboys at all. Do you know
the only thing I'd say about the game is, I know we joke about teams tanking and losing games because potentially they can get a better pick in the draft next year. The reality is the Cowboys are still in with a slight chance of winning the division. And I know I'm clutching at straws here, but the reality is, if things went...
You're right, yeah.
If things went a certain way this weekend with Washington and the Giants not winning and Dallas were to win, they'd be only one game out of first place, which is a bizarre thing to think with that record that they have. So that's the reason why I think they will need to win the game.
I think you're right. I was going to pick the Bengals, but I think you've converted me into saying that I think the Cowboys will win by a field goal.
Michael, you should pick the Bengals because you seem to be getting a lot right lately, and I want the Bengals to win.
No, do you know what? I'm gonna pick the Cowboys. I think Randy Bullock will have a good day for the Bengals, big Randy. But I mean, it's much ado about nothing. I like Andy Dalton. I would love Andy Dalton in Denver. And at that point, I'm going to move on very swiftly to Colin's face. My God. Right, good football, or at least one half of that. Tennessee Titans, 8-4, boys. Good football team. Going up against the 1-11 Jacksonville Jaguars. Boys, I'm sorry about this order. We'll sort this out next week. Colin, do you think Jags have a chance in this game? The London Jaguars.
No. I mean, you talked about good halves. The Titans last week, they decided.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
Not just dig themselves a hole. They decided to dig to the other side of the globe. What they were at in that first half, much better in the second half. The Jags are what the only thing the two things going for them this year, they're okay against the run, but they're awful against the pass. So Ryan Tannehill will have a day, I would imagine, and James Robinson, I think today is probably the day he goes over the 1,000-yard mark as a rookie. So the Titans have to win. I would have still all sorts of questions about them in the playoffs, but you never know if Derrick Henry can get hot. He didn't last week at all, but they need to win this. They will win this, and the Titans move to 9-4 for the season.
In fairness to the Jags, they've lost 11 in a row, and since 2015, 3 of the 6 teams that have lost 11 in a row have got the first round pick, but it won't be the Jags, unfortunately. They won't get the rewards at the end of the season for this losing streak. They have been competitive in some games. Like they went to Green Bay, they were competitive. They were competitive in Minnesota last week, and they lost in a field goal. So they are losing games, but I think they're doing the right thing. They're maintaining a competitiveness within the games, but they're losing the games because that's the right thing to do in the long run. And you touched on Tannehill there. Will he have a good game? I'd expect he would. Yeah, he's the first quarterback in Titans history to have 100 yards passer rate 2 seasons in a row, which is mad to think that of all the years they've never had that. So yeah, he certainly looks like he's there for the long haul now. And then they've got Henry, so I would expect a rebound from him, similar to what he done 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis, where he had 2 or 3 touchdowns in the first half. He had 3 in that game. I'd imagine he'll have 2 or 3 touchdowns in this game. I think the Titans will win well.
You say it's funny, Brian, but of course, look, the Titans' history has been more with running quarterbacks. You know, whether it's Vince Young, whether it's the great late Steve McNair. You know, the fact that they haven't had that passer rating over that level is, I suppose, not that big a surprise. And Tannehill has the benefit of probably of the strongest run game, even when the Titans won that year 15-1 and bounced out in the first playoff game. And they had Lendale White, particularly stands out to me just because he was a big boy from USC. But they've never had as strong a running game as they have at the moment. Derrick Henry is immense. He's the best running back in the NFL at the moment. He has put the Titans on his back quite consistently. But what last week exposed is they actually are built that if it's unexpected and if you can give Tannehill some time in a clean pocket, he does have the weapons there. He's got Corey Davis, a first-round pick. He's got Adam Humphries, their big free agent acquisition. And, of course, he's got A.J. Brown. So they do have weapons in the passing game as well. And if you do what the Browns do and completely load up on the run game and put 8 in the box and try and stop Derrick Henry, Tannehill is mature enough and capable enough and accurate enough to punish you. Do I say you suddenly change to a spread offense and put it all on him? Absolutely not. God help us all. But they're well built to do damage. They're definitely well built to handle this game. Look, the only hope for the Jags in this game effectively is going measure for measure which is another Shakespeare play, just so you know, guys, going measure for measure in the offensive and defensive lines, clogging it up in the trenches, helping James Robinson do his magic, somehow on the D-line stopping the Titans and stopping Derrick Henry and stuff. But I do not see it. The Jags have too much on the line to lose. The Titans have too much on the line to win. Therefore, I can only really see a Titans win.
Look, I mean, Mark enjoys a few musical numbers. Ariana Grande, thank you. Next, thank you. Next, this will be over after the first quarter. Sorry.
Lock of the week
I still think the Jags is good. Huh?
Lock of the week material.
Do you know what? I wouldn't even, because it's like putting £20 and getting 20p back. There's no point. I mean, the Titans are going to win. I still think the Jets will win a game this season, so it'll be interesting to see. Hey, Brian, Mark, week 17, yeah. I think we all know what's going to happen there.
I've been banging that drum for a while, so.
And I'll be banging a few other drums. Sunday Night Football, baby. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. Mark, I really think that the Jets are going to win week 17. But look, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that conversation. Titans all day. If only that game was a few weeks ago. Like, I am out of the playoffs in my fantasy league. So, Derrick Henry, thanks very much, mate. Chiefs Dolphins 11-1 against 8-4. I think this is a really interesting game. The first real game we have here. So really interested to talk about it. Patrick Mahomes obviously beat Denver last week, Colin. Never really left his car or the bus. So whether he tried to or not is a different question, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But what's your opinion ahead of this game? The Chiefs going to Miami, Colin. Do you think the Chiefs are in trouble here, or do you think it'll be all right?
I think they'll be fine. I actually have the Broncos stayed in it last Sunday night, right? But the Chiefs just decided that they were going to win the game, and they turned on the boosters and away they went. And it was like they all just changing gears. They just slipped into another gear. They hit Kelsey. Honey Badger comes up with the game-winning interception, and it looked like it was never in doubt. For me, I think the biggest issue that the Chiefs have is, they're able to move up these gears against the likes of the Broncos. I think they'll be able to do similar. I see a very similar sort of game. The Dolphins are very good defensively. Xavier Howard is an outstandingly good player, and he's playing really, really well. But the Chiefs just have too many weapons. I mean, they left some of it on the field. Last week, their receiver caught a touchdown, didn't even realize, just walked off the field, and they still won, right? So to me, though, the Chiefs, when they get to the playoffs, it'll be taking that step forward. I think a little bit of complacency would be the concern there, but I would imagine they will have enough to take care of this Dolphins team, who, like, kudos to the Dolphins, because Flores has done an exceptional job there. And as a Broncos fan, I look at Flores, I look at a second-year head coach, a defensive-minded head coach. He's done really well. And we were told last year there were players leaving Miami. We were told that things weren't unhappy in the camp. They were going to tank. There were this and that. Well, they have been pretty impressive over the past couple of years. And I don't think it'll be enough to beat the Chiefs. But I think that given what they have received from the Texans, could be a really interesting year in Miami next year.
Yeah, just on Miami, whilst we all understand and agree to a certain extent that Tua was the logical decision in terms of bringing him at some stage during the season, the reality is, since he's played and once he's looked good, they're only averaging 20 points on offense. It's kind of distorted because they put up some high numbers against the Rams, but predominantly most of those scores were on special teams and defense. So if that's the case again today against the Chiefs, and they don't run over 20 points, you're then expecting that defense to hold the Chiefs to 20 or less points. That's only happened to Mahomes once since he's a starter, and that was last season at home against the Colts, which they only scored 13 points. So I think it's a big ask to hold the Chiefs to less than 20 points, and for that reason, I can't see how the Chiefs won't put up 27, 30 points and win the game.
Brian Flores has to be in serious contention, in my mind, for Coach of the Year. He has turned around Miami very quickly. He potentially has his franchise quarterback who he's developing along, but he is doing a lot with a roster that's still evolving there. I think the biggest strength, actually, Colin alluded to in the offseason, the noise around it. He's blocked out the noise. He made some tough calls. He recruited over Chad O'Shea from the Patriots as well as wide receiver coach in the Pats. Brought him over as offensive coordinator in the Dolphins. Obviously, hey buddy, come and join me. My new job. This will be great together. And then he fired him after one season. He said, "This isn't working." Flores is, he's going to be his own man. I think he's building up a great program there. And he is turning the Fins into a real contender. Is this enough for facing Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs? Well, Brian Flores was involved when the Patriots obviously slowed down Mahomes for the first half in a couple of games in the 2018 season. But slowing down Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs over 4 quarters is a different matter. I'm still absolutely convinced they have not got out of third gear for much of this season. And the switch is there. You saw it last year in the AFC Championship game against the Texans. They were asleep at the wheel for the first half. Everybody knew the game wasn't over, and 24 down doesn't matter. Flip the switch, put it into hyperdrive, and they can blow anybody away. the one thing I'll say is, look, the Dolphins will make the playoffs. The Dolphins will maybe upset a couple of people, but unfortunately, Finns fans, it's another case of love labours lost. Because whilst, Michael, you bring up the 25 years the Cowboys have had since the Super Bowl win, and whilst, of course, the Broncos, after their last Super Bowl win, are about to be the first side to have 5 non-appearances in the playoffs straight after that win, the Dolphins are now approaching 47 years since their last Super Bowl win. And Finns fans, of course, look forward to the future, and you should look forward to the future and hope that Brian Flores may be that person to turn it around. But not today and not this year.
I think he might be the person to turn it around. And just echoing what you're saying, Mark, in regards to the Chiefs and the gears that they're in. I've watched, obviously they're on most weeks now anyway because they're the champions, and I've watched them a few times this season. Literally sat down and just watched their games. They didn't get out of first gear in LA when they were playing the Chargers. I would argue they weren't out of second gear when they were playing the Broncos last week. They only put 22 up. There's been games where they haven't scored a lot of points, and there's been games where they've been beaten. They've lost one game. So, until Mahomes completely balls out to the point where I'm crying, I'm yet to be convinced that they're going to make another run for this, lads, to be honest with you. Why can't the Dolphins win this game today? Why not? Tua has a point to prove. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the Chiefs are going for 10 away wins, in a row. It's such a great record. I don't think any team has ever actually achieved that in the NFL. And then, just in terms of comfortable surroundings, I mean, where else to be more comfortable than in the stadium which you won the Super Bowl last February? So they'll have a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling when they arrive at that stadium.
Yeah, I think the Patriots had 17 unbeaten games away from home at one point, Brian. I think
back in the past,
back in the day, back in the distant,
back in the day.
Yeah,
we'll have to go check those, Mark.
Well, if I'm playing for the Dolphins, I'm looking at Sunday Night Football and I'm seeing the Bills, who are one game up in the division, and I'm thinking they're not going to win that. They will, but that's a different conversation for later on. They're thinking they're not going to win that tonight against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have only lost one game and they're playing okay. So why can't they? Unless the Chiefs go out and score 35 points, why can't the Dolphins go out and give this game a go? You got Tua for a start, who, yes, he is a rookie, but on his day, he could score, why not, 25 to 32 points, and I give this a go. Mike Gesicki last week looked great. Can't remember his name, Devontae Parker, the wide receiver as well. They've got threats, and they've got a talented enough defense to the point where I think they have a chance. If they do win, you know what, Frigga, I'm going to pick them to win the game. I'll pick them to win by a field goal.
You've literally talked yourself into that one, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I have. Because I think the Steelers, for me, I'm going off the bat here now, but the Steelers as one of the main teams with the main records, and I called them to lose last week. I don't think they've gone into that gear yet, and I don't think the Chiefs have. I think the Chiefs have went into this season thinking, we're the champions, nobody's going to beat us. And I think if they have that mindset where they're not playing to their maximum potential, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. I think the Dolphins are going to win this game. Sorry, I don't know. I love how nobody's laughing now or doing that because this could go on Twitter.
But Michael, nobody's laughing because it is very possible and it is very doable. And I love the fact that you're now calling out Drew Lock to have an amazing game and Tua to have an amazing game. All I'm hearing in my mind is like Matt Flynn and Kevin Kolb. That yes, any mouse can have his day. But they're a good side. Their record speaks for itself. Their performances this year speak for themselves. This is a cracking game. Don't get me wrong. I just think the Chiefs are going to have too much.
Hopefully it's a good game to sit and actually watch. You got Jim Nance, Mr. Romo and all on it as well, so it should be good crack today. That's 6 o'clock early game as well. But the standout game of the weekend, boys, is our next game. We got the 6-6 Arizona Cardinals going to New York to take on the leaders of the NFC East, the New York Football Giants. Colin, surely this is a complete mismatch, and the Giants have about 30 points, yeah?
Well, we have been very hard on the Giants on this show, but I'm going to say nice things. The Giants have won 4 in a row. The Cardinals have lost 3 in a row. The Giants have 20 takeaways, Brian, this season. That's
correct, yeah.
Which is quite something. And I like they got to Russell Wilson 5 times, like they sacked him 5 times. And Leonard Williams has been a revelation coming through the inside. Now, yeah, Kyler Murray is more elusive, certainly than even Russell Wilson, but I would have to say that the Giants' rush defense is very good, and if you are taking away that from Kyler Murray, and you're forcing him to to beat you in the air. Can he do it? Yes, because they certainly have options. But this is a Cards team that's quite beat up. If you look at the list of guys who are questionable for today's game, Hopkins is carrying an injury. Isaiah Simmons and defense is carrying an injury. These guys will play because it is a really, really big game. But they're certainly beat up, and I think at the moment the last team you want to be beat up against is the Giants, because they went to Seattle, which even without the 12th man, it's not a nice place to go, and they basically punched the Seahawks in the face, which the Seahawks that's what they traditionally do. I think it's going to be a really fascinating game. I really enjoy watching the Cards on offense, but I think the Giants are a really good defensive team. I think the Giants need to lean heavily into the run game, certainly, but they have been doing that in recent weeks. I think this one could really go either way, but Joe Judge he really has the Giants playing well. I would favor them just about for this game.
Joe Judge was really good this week. Mark will remember him because Mark's quite old. Ray Perkins passed away this week, who's a former Giants head coach. The coach that gave Bill Parcells and Belichick their first opportunity in the NFL, and he took the Giants from the wilderness and brought them to the playoffs within 3 years, and potentially Joe Judge could do it within his first season. But just back to
playoffs. I'm sorry.
But back to the game itself. I don't think it's any coincidence that the Cardinals' offense has kind of curtailed off this season since Murray got that injury in the Seattle game. He's only ran for 31 yards, 15 yards, and then last week he only ran for 15 yards on 5 attempts. Their offense is just not the same when he doesn't have that option in terms of the run pass option. And then Hopkins has been held to 60 or less yards in 3 games in a row. So teams are now, like Mark alluded to there on our show on Thursday, Gilmore took Hopkins out of the game in Foxborough 2 weeks ago. And I can see the same situation with Bradbury going on him, and he'll take him out because he's done that by and large for most of the season against the most effective receiver. And just in terms of the Giants offense, yeah, Daniel Jones is going to play, but it is now becoming a more run-oriented team. And the Cardinals have given up 110 plus yards in 9 games this season. So I think the Giants will lean very much on Gallman and Morris to run the ball, and now the defense to do their thing. And I'm going to pick the Giants to win, obviously. No surprise. But it's crunch time
now. Brian bringing up, obviously, the sadly departed Ray Perkins. Michael quoting Jim Mora. If you were an NFL fan back in the 80s and 90s, welcome to the show, guys. It's like it was just yesterday. Look, Colm, you were alluding to the injuries, but you didn't allude to the key one, which Brian has, which is Murray. I mean, he is not performing the way he was. Last 3 games, he's rushed under 20 yards in all games. And dare I say, because I don't like to make fun of his diminutive stature, but are we seeing the taming of the shrew quite literally before our eyes? The Cardinals were my kind of wildcard dark horse kind of key team I was excited to see this season, who I thought would make the playoffs. But they're now in a really tricky space. They're occupying that 7th wildcard slot in the NFC. And dare I say, because I always thought they couldn't come out, the Vikings are at 5 and 7, sorry. They're thereabouts. They're 1 game off them. If the Cardinals continue to slip, obviously lost their last 3, they're going to lose that wild card slot as well. And so those, shall we say, bad teams, the Lions, the Vikings, they still actually have playoff hopes at this stage as well. The Giants, all credit to them. I did not see last week's result coming. They've continued to work hard, fight hard, play hard. The team that Joe Judge is building there and the spirit of the team that we saw early in the season when they didn't close out games is standing to them now that they are closing out games like the Bengals. They could have thrown away, but they didn't. And the last week was just a superb performance, especially by the defense and especially by the Wayne Gallman, who really sparked their run game. I'm jumping on board the Wayne train and going choo-choo. Much as I rate Kyler Murray and rate the Arizona Cardinals, there's just too many injuries, and maybe, just maybe, the Giants have that spirit of greatness, that spirit of kind of that Christmas spirit, that essence coming through now at the right time to stimulate them into the playoffs as the deserved division winners of the NFC East. So Giants tonight to win.
Mark, do you remember how you kept saying do it for Larry? I think it's time you start changing it to do it for Brian.
Dear God. Lads,
there's no way we're going to have a full house. So come on, Michael, give it
I know,
to us.
but just shout it out, right? Is Kyler Murray playing today?
Yes, of course.
Is DeAndre Hopkins playing today?
Yeah.
Is Kenyon Drake playing today?
Yeah.
All right. Cardinals win.
Okay. Similar kind of thoughts last week. We'll see how we go here.
Yeah, but like every dog has its day. You know, I say if you play that Seahawks game 99 times.
Every dog has its day. You heard it earlier barking in the house.
Yeah. Yes. And for anybody watching this, we had to restart the show 3 times at the start because of Brian's dog. Is your dog a Giants fan?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Happy days.
Giants
Talking about dogs, every dog has his day, and the next team has got Tom Brady at quarterback, even though he's like 100 now. 7-5 Bucks, 6-6 Vikings. Interesting game. Obviously, Colin, we were talking. I think it was last week, the week before. You were saying it was 2 weeks ago, the Chiefs game, if I'm right. Such an important game for Tampa Bay, and the Tampa Bay sitting now 7-5. What's your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, they have wobbled since Antonio Brown walked into that building. They've had a bit of a slump, unsurprising in some ways because he's just a distraction. They were trying to build a new offense to begin with, and then you add that to the mix. I think though for the Bucks, they're fortunate in that their strengths are against the run, and they are phenomenal against the run, and even Dalvin Cook is going to find it tough going against them. I think although they haven't been as strong in pass defense, they are good at getting to the QB, and we saw Cousins get sacked 4 times last week. Eric Kendricks is out. The Bucks will win this one and move to 8-5.
You know, over the years you hear about head coaches and they say they're good head coaches because they play to players' strengths. But Arians is continuously talking about this explosive offense, and he wants the ball going down the field for us before it goes with the dunk and dive passes. But let's be fair, that's what Brady is now. He's slowed up. He's still effective when he can be in terms of getting the ball down the field. But Mark alluded to it previously on other shows in the past where last season the Patriots offense worked because it was quick, get the ball out quickly to the receivers, get the balls out on screen passes to the running backs. And that's what the Bucs should be doing in order to run the clock, drive down the field, score touchdowns. And the reason why they've been off the field so much is because the expectation is Brady goes long and he's been throwing interceptions left, right, and centre this season. However, they are very strong against the run game, so I don't think Dalvin Cook will have the game that we would expect him to have. And they're coming off their bye. They've had 2 weeks to get it right. The Vikings have been Jekyll and Hyde this season. You wouldn't be surprised if they won. You won't be surprised if they lose. I think the Bucs now really have to win this game to maintain that wild card space, because they're not going to win the division at this stage. The Bucs will win.
The Bucs will win tonight. 12th night will come back quite aptly, obviously, after a week after their bye as well. I wouldn't say he's been throwing interceptions left, right, and center. He's had a few multiple interception games, it must be said.
Yeah, same thing.
The New Orleans game was particularly bad, but obviously overall the season he's thrown I think his ratio is 4-1 in terms of touchdowns to interceptions. So, I'm sure Daniel Jones wouldn't mind that ratio, Brian, from time to time. But the point is, this becomes a really, really intriguing game for playoff implications. I mean, the Vikings, if they can get things going, and we've talked before in other weeks about Justin Jefferson. Obviously, Adam Thielen is a superb talent there at the wide receiver positions. But if the Vikings win this game, it's not just then the Cards that are in their sights for the wild card; it's the Bucks as well, and they'll hold the tiebreaker. So this becomes actually, I would say, a lot more of a must-win for Tampa Bay than people are reckoning. The good thing for Tampa Bay fans, the end of the season is pretty a bit more straightforward. They've 2 games against the Falcons, for example, their last 3 games. I think the Texans are their other game. They're all games that you would expect them to win. And if they do win and they go in 11-5, maybe a bit of momentum, is the narrative a little bit different. It's not going to be easy for them. The Vikings have enough to win this game. Don't get me wrong in any way, shape, or form, but I do think the bye is going to help the Bucs right the ship, and they will win this by at least a touchdown.
I just sort of go on what Brian said there. This is a must-win game in terms of the division, in terms of the playoffs for this Tampa Bay team, which everybody was, so excited about in April and May time. I think they'll win it. I think they'll be one and done in the playoffs, but I think this will be another game they win to get to that next level. I don't want to start talking about Tom Brady, and my God, I don't want to. They'll win this game. Colts, Vegas, Colin, go.
Yeah, Raiders got out of jail last week, but then so did the Colts, as we've talked about, because of the Texans doing Texan things. The problem for the Raiders is that the Colts are so much better on defense. The Raiders also have the fewest sacks in the NFL, which will be absolutely delightful for old man Rivers, and he is the key. When he plays well, the Colts win. In their 4 losses, teams have gotten to him, they've hustled, they've harried him. The Raiders won't be able to do that, I don't think. And I think when you give him time, they have enough weapons and they have the run game. The Colts win and move on to 9-4.
Yeah, this is a big game for the Raiders. They really have to rebound off a very disappointing performance last week. And look, we know they won the game at the end, but you have to question some sanity in terms of play calling by Mr. Williams, who's now departed the Jets. But the Raiders defense has given up over 30 points a game, nearly 4 of the last 5, which doesn't bode well for their chance against an explosive offense with the Colts. But a few weeks ago, I picked the Colts against the Packers because I felt that Rivers had the number on Rodgers. And Carr actually has had very good career games against the Colts. He's thrown 8 touchdowns. He's never thrown an interception. I think he has the Colts number. And I'm going to pick the Raiders. I think the Raiders will rebound and win this game.
8 interceptions. Brian's clearly reading Daniel Jones' stats again. But anyway, moving on. You could have used all's well that ends well for this one for the Raiders. Last week, my God, what a finish, what an ending, what a joke in many ways. But they won the game, and after their abject performance against the Falcons the week before, they really needed that. The problem is, I do see this ultimately turning into a great Shakespearean tragedy. And just like Julius Caesar, Chucky is not listening to the Ides of March and the warnings of the Ides of March at present. And I fear that the Raiders' season is becoming derailed, and the wheels are wobbling off. Something that started so promisingly, great win obviously against the Chiefs, as we've all alluded to. They're not heading in the right direction going into December. And that is a worrying trend. And frankly, the Colts are. The Colts have been putting together very consistent performances. Obviously, they beat the Titans one week and they were quite handily destroyed by them on the rubber match. But they are deservedly at the top of the AFC South along with the Titans. They'll be there fighting it tooth and nail to the end of the season, and they will beat the Raiders this week.
How different our opinions can be. I mean, for 5 minutes last week, I looked like the biggest genius ever, saying that the Raiders were going to get beat against the Jets. But whenever they didn't, and whenever they won that game, and we can talk about that game and the fact that play was almost rigged for the whole night. Derek Carr's celebration, it was like something from Gladiator. I think they're going to go on a run now. I do. I think Carl will have a day against the Colts. The game's in Vegas as well. I think the Colts will win. Sorry, I think the Colts will lose by about 7 to 10 points. In fact, the Raiders are my lock of the week, boys.
Do you like Derek Carr? Do you, Michael?
Yeah, I think he's a good quarterback. Yeah.
I think you're the John Gruden of the Irish NFL show. You love every other quarterback except for your own.
Let me be quite clear, right? I hate the Raiders. I hate the Chiefs.
Well, you're wearing
And
a
I have
colors today.
I've got no respect for just wherever they're playing this week, the Chargers. But the reality is, boys, the Raiders at least have a quarterback column there that's played for a few years, and I think we can talk about that and talk about that. But Derek Carr will get the job done, and so yeah.
And
I think they'll win.
You're wearing your Raiders colours as well, which is nice to see.
Thanks, guys. So it was either this or it was a Manchester United jacket, which I don't really.
Good call, Michael.
Appreciate that, Mark. Appreciate that very much. Tom, a good calls. Jets 0-12 against the 8 well, they should be 9-3, but they're 8-4. Seattle Seahawks, boys. Colin.
The Seahawks could not have asked for a better game to get back on track. Talked about it before. The Jets are historically bad. Getting rid of Greg Williams will not make any difference to that organization whatsoever. While the Raiders needed the last second victory, Waller was. He just ran all over them. I would expect Disley could potentially do the same. If you're wondering who to start in fantasy, maybe look to the whatever tight end is playing against the Jets. The Seahawks are winning this and winning it handily.
Yeah, over the past week, it's come out that some of the Seahawks players are kind of put out there that they were complacent last week and they took the joint slightly. But so they should be all serious for this game, but it's hard to see how they can take this game seriously with the way the Jets are. Look, they're going to win. I think it's a rebound game for Wilson. I think they'll put up 30-40 points on this. I could see a 38-7 type of score. And I think Metcalf and Lockett will go off in one. I think you can see about them having a pair of touchdowns each.
The British comedian Jasper Carrott once came out with a great comment about William Shakespeare. He said, you have to remember that William Shakespeare was born in Stratford-upon-Avon. Stratford-upon-Avon is actually very close to Birmingham, and that therefore makes Shakespeare a Brummie. And many of Shakespeare's plays can be heard in a very different tone. If you can just imagine Shakespeare's there writing away, and then he goes running into his wife and he says, "Here, Anne, what do you think about this? Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" And that's a very bad joke. There's another very bad joke. They're called the New York Jets. And they are going to go 0-16. They should have won last week, but they didn't. And Seattle Seahawks are going to destroy them this weekend.
I've been
top that, Michael.
I've been in Stratford-upon-Avon, and yeah, I can't top that. Jokes, wind turbines. I'm a big fan. There's one. I will pick the Seahawks to win this game. The NFL record in terms of wins is in terms of points scored in the game and the win is 59-0. Why not? Why not?
Do we remember who that was by any chance?
Well, actually, it was more than one team, Brian. It was the Rams in 1976, and it was your New England Patriots back whenever I was still in school, and I also had a full thick head of hair down to here. Times have changed.
In a snowstorm against
Saw the Mark back then as well.
Moving swiftly on, gentlemen. The 9-3 Green Bay Packers against the 5-7 Detroit Lions. Here we go, Colin. Vamos.
Aaron Rodgers is having a year, but the Packers aren't going to need him tomorrow or today because the Lions can't defend the run. Aaron Jones is rediscovering his early season form following injury. The Lions also have allowed 33 sacks. Packers had 7 against Philly. They will fill their boots, and the Packers will win this game.
God, it's a difficult game for the Lions, isn't it? They've had no success in December against the Packers ever, even when they had head coaches. Rodgers is 5-0 against them in December. Where do we go with this one? The Packers haven't even given up more than one sack on Rodgers in 10 games in a row, and the Lions' defense is just struggling big time. The Texans put it up on them last week. And we alluded to earlier, even Mr. Trubisky was able to put up over 30-odd points on them last week. Packers are going to win. It's going to be a steamroll. This is one of the games I can see Rodgers sitting on the sideline in the fourth quarter because they can ease the second quarterback in. Maybe Jordan Love might see some action.
Brett Favre had an amazing record against the Detroit Lions. Aaron Rodgers has an even better record against the Detroit Lions. It's really as simple as that. The Lions have bounced back very nicely since firing Patricia, the usual bounce after a coach has been exited. I did pick them to win last week. It was only the Bears, but I did still pick them to win. And they duly delivered. But this is a step too far, a bridge too far. And Aaron Rodgers, like Shylock in A Merchant of Venice, will extract his vengeance. He will extract his pound of flesh from the carcass of the Lions and feast on their remains.
This game will be over at halftime, but not just because of Aaron Rodgers, because of Aaron Jones. There you go. 24 to 30 point win for the Green Bay Packers. Time to charge it up, boys, and we're going to talk about the 3-9 Los Angeles Chargers, who are a game off the Broncos in the AFC West, trying to get to the playoffs against the Atlanta Falcons. 4-8. Well, let's bomb through because we've still got 4 games to go. For me, I'm just going to say mine now. I think the Chargers will win it by a touchdown because I think Herbert will just be better than Matt Ryan, who's starting to look like a phone, ironically, that needs charged. Colin.
Falcons struggled against Hill last week in the passing game, which tells you all you need to know. Julio Jones is out. That is an enormous loss because it puts everything on Ridley. Herbert has a bounce-back game and the Chargers win this.
Yeah, just on bounce-back for Herbert. Yeah, the last 2 games, he kind of dropped off to what we have seen for the majority of the season. Matt Ryan, for all the stick he gets, is still a top 10 quarterback this season in terms of rankings. And the Falcons, when we don't expect them to win, tend to surprise us. And it's a toss-up for me, and I'm starting to think that Anthony Lynn is gone. I think we all agree he's very much on the hot seat. And I see a game where the Chargers somehow managed to throw it away, and I think the Falcons will be the one who steps in with a late field goal or a late touchdown to win the game.
Matt Ryan always has great stats because he's throwing to catch up in the bloody games. He's actually going to ultimately be the yardage leader in NFL statistics in due course. He's well on course for that, and that's actually, I think, a little bit sad in many respects, considering he'll overtake Manning, Brady, Breeze to get there. Yeah, Justin Herbert to have a bounce-back game. That Falcon secondary has shored up from its appalling start, but it's still very weak. This is going to be like Henry V tearing through, defeating all his foes, and taking over France after being usurped in that regard. Chargers to win.
I didn't do English history in school, so I
you don't need to anymore. You have it all here.
We really bring everything, and let's watch Brian's face right now because I've been waiting for this moment for the last hour. The Philadelphia Eagles are going up against the New Orleans Saints, and the Philadelphia Eagles really need to win today. They've got a new quarterback with Jalen Hurts. Do you think he will hurt the New Orleans Saints, Colin?
No. The Philly struggled on the ground last week. They struggled in the pass. They are they're a mess. They're outside of the Jets that are the perennial mess. Philly are probably the biggest dumpster fire in the league right now, given what they have available. It doesn't seem to matter who's a quarterback. It just isn't working. They had 7 sacks last week. 2 different quarterbacks. They're going up against the Saints team that have held their opponents under 17 points for 5 straight games. That's not changing. The Saints are marching on. They go to 11-2.
Not only that, Colin, the Eagles haven't scored more than 17 points in 5 games in a row either. The great thing about the Eagles right now is Carson Wentz next year is worth $34 million of their cap. They feel they want to move on without him. You know, rock on, do your utmost and get rid of him, because then it'll be worth $50 million of your cap. So happy days. You know, they are in such a precarious situation. Jalen Hurts might come in and maybe a couple of drives he might look like he's the answer, but no, the Saints, I think Taysom Hill will have a day, both running and throwing, and Kamara will go off him as well. The Saints will win. The Saints are gearing up for that Chiefs game next week, which will be a big game because both teams are going to be going for number 1 seed in both conferences. But they won't have to worry about this game too much. The Saints will win comfortably.
REM said it. Everybody hurts sometimes, and certainly that's the case for the entire Philadelphia Eagles roster. They've been decimated by injuries. It's just skill positions to the offensive line, but none of that can really be an excuse for the consistent bad play of Carson Wentz this season. I made excuses for him early in the season. I'm done with doing that. I think Doug Peterson quite clearly is done with doing that as well, and now give their second round pick a chance at this regard. Obviously, Jalen Hurts has seen adversity before, being passed over in Alabama, having to transfer out when Tua was picked and came in the national championship game. Unfortunately, this game is all about the Eagles in many respects. Hamlet springs to mind. They've listened to the whisperings that the father was assassinated, and in the end of Hamlet, everyone dies. The king, the queen, Hamlet, the duelist he was against. It's all gone. And an outside shot, I would say, as someone under pressure in the offseason is actually Doug Peterson. We alluded to it. Memories are short there, and even though he brought a Super Bowl victory, where they're at and where the roster construction their GM is at are under pressure. The Saints, we were worried when Taysom Hill came in. They've been steady. Hill and Kamara have worked well together. It's very, very difficult to see them losing here. And I'd put 2 touchdowns on it, to be honest with you.
It is glorious to see, though, isn't it? We have, to see the Eagles demise.
What a beautiful night that was, though, a few Februarys ago. What a beautiful night. At the time that ball went up. He didn't get it. What a night that was. The Dark Lord.
I forget that one, Michael. The Patriots have had so many Super Bowls in the last few years. I just forget that one, but
and that's all right. And today, boys. There
we go.
Hey, yo, Doug Peterson. I did it. This is the greatest moment of my life. This is going to be the funeral of Carson Wentz today, boys. I genuinely think the Eagles are going to switch it on. They're 2 games out. Well, sorry. Are they 1 game out or 2 games out, Brian?
They're 2 games out.
Right. So realistically,
but they're one. It's a bit of a weird one. You could say they're 1.5 games out. But the Washington have the tiebreaker on them. So.
I can see already you're getting angry, so I'm going to make this quick and sweet. I can see it in your face. I'm not doing this in badness. I mean, the Saints, Drew Brees is not coming back for at least another week or 2, right? So if they can try and condense the run, the Eagles, they've got a chance. And why can't Jalen Hurts, in the biggest game of his life, do something that other teams have done for years? They brought a quarterback in, the quarterback lights it up. Yeah,
because it doesn't matter whether it's a pro quarterback, whether it's a middle-range quarterback, whether it's Drew Lock or whether it's a rookie. The Saints are taking care of every quarterback this year.
Well, the Saints didn't have to try against Drew Lock. Look, I'm just saying, why not? Bit of crack, I'm going to pick the Eagles. Yeah?
You said he was getting angry, Michael. You can see it in his eyes. You can see it in his
flying hard now. Right, anyway, lads, we got to talk about Sunday Night Football. So really quickly, can we talk about the Arizona 49ers and the Washington... They're still called the Washington Football Team, right? So really quickly, lads, firstly, 5-7.
Firstly, kudos to Washington for that win. Kudos to Alex Smith on being comeback player of the year, because he's winning that. I think it was the first time a 4-7 team have beaten a team that has won its first 11 games. Unfortunately, I think that win, hugely emotional win, but to have to go on the road, Gibson is out today against a team who the 49ers they're missing so many, but well coached. I think the 49ers will have enough.
Taking all my bias away in terms of the Giants, I'm actually very impressed with Washington overall this season. Riverboat Riders did a fantastic job. And I'm actually surprised that they're not favourites for this game. I don't see why they're the underdogs, because arguably they got the number 1 defence in the league. They're certainly top 5. And the 49ers are stuttering. They're playing the games in Arizona. They didn't put up much on Monday. The score against the Bills wasn't really reflective of the game. They got a couple of garbage time touchdowns to bring the game a little bit closer. They're all living out of hotels. They're not in their comfort zone of Santa Clara. I think Washington will win.
I was getting very excited about the Giants earlier on. And I am, but I'm more excited about the Washington football team and what they're putting together. And I could quote Titus Andronicus or some other Shakespeare play, but I'm just going to keep it simple, guys. Washington will win and remain in pole position at the moment for the NFC East?
AFC East, anyway. Interesting.
NFC, I did.
Well, look, somebody different is going to win the AFC East this year, Mark. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to say that. For the same reasons, that Brian said, for the Niners out of their comfort zone, season's pretty much over for them. Washington will win this game, boys, and 6 and 7. Woof! Could you imagine Alex Smith, the biggest comeback ever? Right, let's because we got about 6 minutes. Let's do this, lads. The biggest game of the season to date. We've got the 11-1 Pittsburgh Steelers against my 9-3 Buffalo Bills. Colin, let's go, man. Let's go. Who's going to win this game? Game in Buffalo as well. Steelers coming off a loss. Who's going to win?
The Bills are going to win. I think the Steelers are wobbling, and their offense has stuttered. They losing players on defense. It should be a great game. It'll definitely be a battle even still. I just think going to Buffalo in December when the Bills are playing, and I thought the Bills did really well against Kyle Shanahan. Whatever about the 49ers being out of their comfort zone, Kyle Shanahan is an excellent coach, and while the Bills aren't obviously as strong defensively as Washington, they're much better in offensively. The only thing is, I think Allen will need to be mobile. He cannot wait and stay in the pocket for the big plays, because this is a Steelers team that gets at you. But I do expect that the Bills are going to win this, and Michael, that will absolutely make your Sunday.
Yeah, I do agree. I think the Bills will win, but it's more so because of the limitations that we're seeing of this Steelers offense now. I'm not sure what James Conner's status is in terms of being the main running back for the game, but since he's gone out of the team, the Ravens did it to them. They eliminated the run game. They made Ben throw for predominantly 4 quarters. They got away with that game to a certain extent at the end with that kind of throw that they managed to get the first down and see out the clock. They didn't last week, and the Washington team held them in check in terms of the run game. Big Ben isn't getting sacked, but it's all very good, your offensive line taking care of you, but if you can't have a dimensional offense and you're continuously throwing the ball at some stage, that defense on the other side is going to catch up with you. That's what Washington did last week, and this Bills defense, whilst they're giving up a lot of points on their day, is a very good defense, and for that reason, I think the Bills will win. And then that means come the end of the evening, the Chiefs will be the number 1 seed in the AFC.
2 great games this weekend are the Chiefs-Dolphins and this game. I mean, this isn't a midsummer night stream. This is a midwinter night stream. It's a great game. It's going to be a great game to watch. And a likely repetition, I would say, we could portend in the playoffs in due course as well. I'm not as high on the Bills as you guys are. Like, they've lost 3 times. They've looked very average in a couple of games. This isn't the Patriots fan in me. This is just the reality of, I know the Bills. I've seen them enough. I've seen this show enough. And Josh Allen has 100% improved from his previous performances, but he can still throw in a Josh Allen game. That's also, Michael, why they're not making the Super Bowl. Tonight's game, the Steelers, you're absolutely right, guys. They're missing James Conner. They're missing that consistency on the run game. They're also severely missing Bud Dupree. We called it when he went down. That is impacting their defense. But the Bills' defense can be had. The Steelers will be roaring back with a vengeance. They've been written off. They've been told they weren't worthy of their record. The haters now have this Washington game to have over them. If you do not think that Mike Tomlin is in the dressing room hammering this into them constantly, you will know. He looks the same as Will.i.am. I swear to God, you've never seen the two of them in the same room at the same time.
If you put a hat on Will.i.am, yeah. I agree.
Yeah, and, I got a feeling that the Steelers will win tonight.
Oh, for God's sake. I love how I've got the last word here. I tell you what, boys, I really am waiting all day for Sunday night tonight, not like last week. I think this is going to be a great game. Really, really, really good game. And the Bills will come out on top. Josh Allen is about to go for it, boys, and they will reach a level that the Steelers have not got to yet this season. But keep an eye on Cole Beasley. He's got more yards than AJ Brown. He's got more receiving than DK Metcalf. He's got more yards per receiving than DeAndre Hopkins. He's got more touchdowns than Julio Jones, and he's got more 100-yard games than Tyreek Hill. So if anybody's going to start saying now the Bills aren't, the Bills are for real, boys. And if the Bills win tonight, I'm going to pick them to win. If the Bills win tonight, they're going to the AFC Championship game. No doubt about it whatsoever. I think America and the world wakes up tonight when Josh Allen and these Buffalo Bills really set it on fire. I'm really excited for it.
And Michael, you're absolutely right. If the Bills win tonight, that's the context. But if they lose tonight, they're possibly in the scenario where if the Dolphins pull off the upset against the Chiefs, they won't even win the AFC East. So big games all around.
I think one thing you can sort of say there, and I think we can all guarantee on, is like this is going to be a big Sunday, especially those 2 games, and there's a lot in play. Lads, I have to bounce. I think we all have to bounce. So, well, I have to bounce anyway. But lads, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Looking forward to talking about Monday Night Football tomorrow night, MNF IRE. Lads, appreciate you. If you're watching this, folks, please like, follow, subscribe. Thanks to Pundit Arena for the partnership as well. And lads, enjoy the day's action. See you tomorrow night.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Come on, Limerick.